Welcome to Kevin Makes Cool Things. I'm Kevin, and today I'm going to ramble about how much I love this dagger. It's Baruka's dagger from the solo leveling manhwa, and it has one of the coolest designs I've ever seen. There were some challenges building it, but now that it's finished, it's definitely the most impressive thing I've made. The fun and the issues started with the design. Generally, I choose a single picture to use for the overall design. Weapons in manga and manhwa have a tendency to change size. They look great and consistent in the art, but if you actually measure them against the characters, you find that the lengths can fluctuate wildly. It's more of an issue for bigger props, like the giant swords you find in some series, but starting with a single image helps avoid the issue entirely. When it came to choosing an image, the art of the solo leveling manhwa was actually really inconvenient. One of the things I love about it are its amazing action shots, but that means we rarely get a good look at the weapons themselves. I could only find 2 panels where the dagger is shown clearly. I would have preferred to use this image because it's a clean view from the side, but we can't see part of the blade and most of the handle is covered up. By process of elimination, this is the image I'm going to use. Now I could move on to finding the dimensions. I do this by measuring the prop in terms of the character's body, which in this case means finding the measurement in terms of Baruka's hand. After I have all the dimensions in hands, I can measure my own hand, do some multiplication, and find the dagger's measurement in inches. Doing this ensures that the dagger will fit in my hand and won't look comically large or small when I'm holding it. This is where I encountered my first issue. Let's look at Baruka's hands for a moment. He has 1, 2, 3 joints in his finger, plus a knuckle that's presumably hidden behind the blade. I don't know about you, but my fingers don't bend like that. Let's also look at his knuckles. They would go something like this, meaning his fingers would look like this. It's amazing art, and the anatomy being a little off won't matter 99% of the time. This just happens to be that 1%. My issue was I didn't realize any of this and kept getting really weird measurements. At one point, I got so fed up I walked away from the project for a while. Eventually, I figured out my mistake and adjusted my measurements until they made sense. Modeling this was pretty easy with one major exception. I used OpenSCAD, which made it really easy to do the blade. I shaped the outer edge with a loop and a sine function. I steadily increased the width of the blade up to this point, then I had it sharply decrease and eventually level off. The hook on the spine is something I created using Boolean operations, and it turned out better than I expected. I made the guard in the same way as the rest of the blade. I used a loop and a sine function for the outside edge, and then used some Boolean operations to help shape the inside. The edge of the blade is rounded, which worked out really well. Rounding the edge seemed easier, and there wasn't a compelling reason to have it sharp. I made the handle with, you guessed it, another loop. At first it was just a cylinder with this repeating pattern. After that was done, I turned my attention to getting it to bend correctly. This spike on the bottom is based on this picture. It's not clearly shown, so I had freedom to do what I thought looked good. The hardest part of modeling this was the hilt. I made multiple attempts and I'm still not thrilled with it. It's the piece with the most detail and I don't think a 3D model can do it justice, at least not with my skills. In the end, I spent more time on the hilt than everything else combined. With the model done, I broke it into pieces that my printer could handle. I was having some issues with prints not adhering to the bed properly, so I opted for smaller sections and added a brim to mine. After everything was printed, I did some sanding and then stuck everything together with some 2-part epoxy. I had a brilliant plan for connecting everything together, which went about as well as my brilliant plans normally do. I left 2 holes in each piece, so I could use a short bit of paperclip to make sure the pieces were aligned. I thought it was so simple any idiot could do it, but it turns out I'm not just any idiot. I screwed up when gluing the handle to the blade. When I pressed the pieces together, one of the bits of paperclip disappeared into the hole. I'm not sure if I misjudged the depth of the hole, or if the forces involved broke through the bottom of the hole and pushed the paperclip into the print itself. Either way, I thought it was perfectly aligned when it wasn't. I had to hack this piece off and reprint it, which felt real bad. On the next prints, I marked how everything should be aligned and was much gentler. After everything was together, I did some sanding, broke the blade, applied some wood filler to smooth it out, broke the blade again, and then did some more sanding. After that, I broke it a few more times, just for good measure. After I was done sanding, I did 2 coats of white acrylic paint as a base. At this point, I started getting really excited. I got this paint for the blade, and it was everything I could have hoped for. The paint I got for the hilt and the handle wasn't quite right, so I mixed my own. I used the blue from the blade as a base, and added some regular blue and varying amounts of black to darken it. I definitely painted the handle in the wrong order. At the bottom of these channels, it's supposed to be the bright blue of the blade. I made the mistake of painting the handle the dark color first, and then going back and trying to add the bright blue. It was immediately obvious I should have done the bright blue first, and I ended up repainting the handle. The detailing on the hilt was nerve-wracking. The manhwa isn't totally consistent about the details, so I went with the simplest pattern figuring it would be harder to mess up. Someone with more experience definitely could have done a better job, but I'm satisfied with it. And then it was done. It turned out way better than expected, and you can probably tell that I'm thrilled. There's a link to the STLs in the video description if you want to make your own. If you like this video and want to support the channel, then like and subscribe.